Yeah! Ho 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 ho! Ho ho ho! Ho 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 ho! Ho 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 ho! Merry Christmas to me!
Radio Free Zemeth, episode 307. We've covered all kinds of stuff on this channel, but I figured it'd be good to start off the new year right with our bread and butter, that being extreme metal. You know, black metal and death metal with the yelly, growly, screamy vocals. I mean, obviously, I like that stuff. It's my favorite type of music to listen to. But it has run into a little bit of a problem since probably around 1996 or so, where for a genre that's supposedly defined by its extremity, it's just not as
shocking
to a lot of people's ears as it used to be. Now, a lot of people have made attempts to remedy this over the years. One of the most notable approaches to this is just to increase the dissonance and harshness of the music to previously unheard levels, to the point where a lot of the more extreme end of this kind of stuff nowadays borders on either noise music or some kind of weird ambient thing. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy some noise and I enjoy some ambient, but you're never going to convince me that something like is in any way heavier than some good old-fashioned you know, in the words of a much wiser man than I,
don't fake the funk on a nasty dunk.
If I were a considerably more cynical person, which is hard to imagine, I would say that the most shocking thing that a modern death metal or black metal band could do nowadays is record an actually good album. But one, I still listen to way too much new music to authentically claim that position. And two, even if I did agree with it, I mean, that's really boring. What am I going to do, sit around all day and review tobacco on my death metal blog? I mean, nobody's interested in that, right? There is, however, one still rather underutilized methodology of creating truly shocking extreme metal, and that lies in the creation of something that experiences extreme tonal disjunction. What I mean by that is, you've got one aspect of the music that's really pretty, beautiful even, but at the same time, you've got a lot of stuff going on that's really
disgusting.
And this sort of cognitive dissonance results in a more shocking listening experience for the consumer. Really good example of this kind of thing would be the band Vehemence from Arizona, specifically on their second album, which has some really screwed up conceptual lyrics and some really nasty liner notes and cover art. But then when you put the actual music on, it's like really pretty sounding melodic death metal type stuff. And even the way in which they go about playing that melodic death metal is kind of strange, because these guys started out as a very rhythmically intense sort of suffocation-inspired death metal band. And they've kept that same sense of intensity to the music, and even the same way of like linking together all these very complex riffs left over from the Suffocation era of their band, and use it to make this really complex melodic death metal sound. And the melodies also fit the lyrics' sense of like gruesome romanticism, because all this stuff probably seems real sweet and lovey-dovey in the eyes of the protagonist, but in reality it's all just
disgusting,
deranged, stalkerish stuff. And that results in something that's honestly rather disconcerting and shocking. I mean, we're still talking about this album today, and it's officially of drinking age.
That's what's most definitely up.
Similarly, the band Visceral Evisceration from Austria. At first glance, you think, okay, this is going to be some pretty standard gore grind. They got that silly name. They got that nasty album cover where some poor lady's getting the Steve Buscemi and Fargo treatment. And the lyrics seem to echo that atmosphere of depravity. But then you look at the song lengths, and they're all like 10 minutes long, and you put the music on itself to see what the heck's going on here. And it's this very early 90s British doom death sounding stuff. Super melodic, very melancholic, sounding like a mixture of Anathema, My Dying Bride, and Paradise Lost. But instead of utilizing the gothic affectations and weepy romantic lyricism of those kind of bands, they're doing intentionally disgusting to the point of almost parody gore grind lyrics. And in an even more sadistic twist, they utilize the same vocal styles as the aforementioned British bands. So you have a blend of clean vocals and low-pitched, harsher vocals. But they're singing about, like, eating people and screwing corpses. So not only is that rather darkly humorous, it's definitely also quite shocking. and I haven't really heard too much else out there that comes close to this kind of stuff. The duology of projects we will be covering this week also falls into that category of generating that level of disturbance via aesthetic disjointment. And it also means I get to say that some of the best extreme metal of 2023 was recorded by a project called Bloody Cum Shot. So, just what the heck is a bloody cum shot anyways?
Basically, if you masturbate with no lube and you jerk your dick too hard or too fast, you can literally cause your dick to get a chafe burn from masturbating too hard. And it forms what I like to call wanker scab.
Well, yeah, that, but it's also a very strange one-man project from Japan, helmed by a very visual K-looking gentleman named Junya Higuchi, that's got album covers that are this weird blend of gothic romanticism and really disgusting gore, as well as song titles and I'm assuming lyrics that are pretty intentionally repulsive. And then when you get to the music itself, it's this very intense but also rather beautiful and catchy sounding take on classic 90s melodic death metal, albeit played with a higher degree of technicality and intensity than would have been common during this particular subgenre's heyday. The riffage itself is very sharp sounding, which is helped by the production being intentionally very digital and cold. There's also quite a bit of death thrash mixed into the proceedings. And they blend all of that with these very power metal style lead guitars. I'm hearing a lot of Children of Bodom here, specifically, early Children of Bodom from back when they were good, which was always a style that did very well in Japan. But then when they get to the more groove-oriented sections of the music that are a little bit more brutal and less melodic, it almost takes on kind of a Crypticus or Pharmacist style cast of this very bendy, kind of technical, clinical riffage, which results in an overall effect of passionate derangement that ends up fitting the very gory lyrical content in a strange sort of way. There's a whole lot of at-the-gate style chunkiness and inflamed style catchy melancholy going on here, but at the same time there's also quite a bit of Heartwork era carcass in the sort of ironically sorrowful sounding melodies. Here's something a little bit more at the gate sounding after that carcassy bit, but then when they get to the more groove-oriented portions of the music, they hit a little bit too hard to be lumped in with the standard sort of Gothenburg style melodic death metal stuff, and that's where the real carcassy style shit really shines through. There's also quite a bit of aesthetic overlap with fellow Japanese death metalers and Intestine Bailism, and given that that's probably my favorite death metal band of all time, definitely not a bad thing. You can tell just from listening to a lot of these riffs that this guy clearly listens to as much, if not more, classic death metal than he does melodic death metal. Real brutality hours, but then it jumps into stuff like this transition right here. I mean, that is some fantastic carcass-worshipping, old-school melodic death metal shit. And as usual for a lot of Japanese bands, the guitar solos on this album are top-notch. Earlier on in this episode, I mentioned as an example of this sort of aesthetic incongruity type thing, the band Vehemence. And wouldn't you know it, I hear a lot of early Vehemence in this band as well. Particularly in Junya's penchant for taking a lot of very brutal and very technical death metal sounding stuff and bouncing these more melodic sections off of it, while still managing to keep all the transitions between different styles relatively smooth. Also, Jesus Christ, dude, this section right here, I feel like I put a Crypticus album on it, played it at 1.5 speed. And then it goes into a very brutal death metal or even more deathcore sounding section. This real nasty, chunky riffs that wouldn't sound out of place on a Deviloof album with all their artificial harmonics and whatnot. And from there into absolute Castlevania core with these darkly harmonized power metal lead guitars, which are rather Japanese sounding, if I do say so myself, before I get back into more of that weird technical chugging stuff that eventually resolves into something quite a bit more neoclassical in sound and approach. So yeah, there's two Bloody Cum Shot albums. He put out one in 2022 and then one in 2023, and yeah, they're both fantastic. But homeboy Junya doesn't confine his attentions to just one project.
Is that all you got, nigga?
Oh, no, nigga. That's just the tip of this iceberg.
He also has another melodic death metal band called Zemeth. This one isn't quite as intent upon grossing you out, although it is rather frenzied and hostile sounding in its own way, and it's got song titles like Fuck You, Bitch. What? No, that's literally the title of a song. And only a few seconds into this song, you could tell that Zemeth is going to have a much different sound to it than Bloody Cum Shot. More prominent keyboards, and also utilization of clean vocals, which really weren't featured in Bloody Cum Shot at all, but make for some humorous moments like Really digging that keyboard sound, by the way. Reminds me a lot of the first Merging Moon album. That's always a good thing, because Merging Moon's great, and they need to put a new album out already. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one out there that cares about Merging Moon anymore, but if you're giving me Merging Moon vibes, you're doing something right. However, I can hear people out there asking, why is this a separate band from Bloody Cumshot? I mean, they're both melodic death metal, right? Why start a whole new project?
You might ask.
Well, I got an answer for you. These two projects are actually not playing the same genre, and you can find that out for yourself if you go to Junior's Twitter, where it clearly states that Zemeth is a nostalgic melodic death metal project, and Bloody Cumshot is an extreme melodic death metal project. So what the heck does he mean by nostalgic melodic death metal? Well, if you scroll through this guy's social media, he brings up nostalgia a lot, specifically in the context of what he calls an indescribable feeling that you often get whilst indulging in old school Japanese RPGs. And in fact, one of his future plans that he's leaked out for Zemeth is to create something of a musical bank of songs that could be utilized in the creation of video games. And as a proof of concept for this, he's actually put out a compilation entitled Japanese Songs, where he recreates a lot of themes from old school JRPGs in a neoclassical melodic death metal style. My favorite one of these is actually a cover of a song from the first Mother game, the prequel to Earthbound. Shamefully enough, I have to admit that I was not familiar with the original form of the song. I guess I'm not a real gamer.
Flat out fucking poo!
But I did recognize it from the version of it they used in Super Smash Bros. Melee. And yeah, it's a real nice, JRPG sounding kind of song. Actually, it reminds me a lot of the shopping mall music from Mega Man Legends. But if you're the Zemeth guy, you're taking a listen to that and you're like, what if we recreated this in the style of Colony era In Flames? Well, wouldn't you know, it ends up working out pretty darn well, thus lending credence to a previous assertion I've made multiple times that old school In Flames has a lot of very Japanese-sounding melodies. This breakdown section here goes hard as fuck, and again, sounds almost exactly like Colony era In Flames, which of course was the intention. But then we get into this melodic solo bit here, and it's shocking how much these JRPG melodies sound exactly like something Jesper Stromblad or Glenn Ljungström would have written as a lead guitar part back in the mid-90s. Really cool stuff. Hopefully that music bank idea takes off because, I don't know, it seems like it might result in a lot of dank fucking tunes, dude.
Oh yeah, baby, like the big ass cigar, right?
But getting back to this nostalgic melodic death metal tag, that sort of wistful, indescribable feeling permeates Zemeth's music quite a bit. For instance, this song right here, Valentine Libido, honestly giving me a lot of Lorraine vibes, if anybody remembers the episode I did on those guys. And despite this being the nostalgic project rather than the extreme one, Zemeth honestly can get even more frenzied sounding than Bloody Cumshot, while still maintaining this sense of kind of waltz-like beauty to everything. I mean, my man is just going nuts with these shredding guitars mixing in with those keyboards all frenzied like. Honestly, it's a similar atmosphere to some of the more insane moments of that Treeglav band I talked about way back on the Thundercraft episode. But yeah, it's definitely got that wistful nostalgic feeling, especially when those pianos come in. It's interesting from an ideological standpoint how his spiritualization of nostalgia echoes a lot of sentiments of dungeon synth artists. Also, I like that he brought back that wacky tropical sounding clean bit from the beginning, now in a more distorted form towards the end of the song. It's called good songwriting, folks. But yeah, that nice Lorraine-sounding melody, that's not the only sort of visual K stuff going on besides the wacky outfits this guy's dressing up in. Because my personal favorite Zemeth song, Kyoi Loneliness, is almost a one-to-one analog of my personal favorite Malice Miser song, Bel Air. Which, if you don't remember the Malice Miser episode, Bel Air's a song, starts out with that nice music box melody.
And we like that.
Then you got the crazy harmonized guitars exploding in all chaotic like.
And we like that.
Before ironing themselves out into a more cohesive melodic pattern.
And we like that.
And then you get to the last third of the song where this happens. Yeah, you got Gak doing his gothic crooning thing, you got these waltzing guitars. slowly fading out and collapsing in on themselves until that music box re-emerges as a compositional element. And it seems like, okay, this is pretty much the outro of the song, right? Seems like everything's wrapping up. Until you remember that Mana wrote this song. And all that intensity comes back.
By getting money at his back.
And all in all, it's one of the best Malice Miser songs.
This is a certified hood classic.
Zemeth's Kill I Loneliness takes all of that and makes it into a nostalgic melodic death metal song. I mean, it starts out with another great music box melody, this one given even more beef with those added string arrangements. Almost sounds like I'm about to start a Castlevania boss fight against a witch or something. Then those guitars come in, and the harmonies are super frenzied and chaotic, made even more chaotic by the inclusion of that crazy shredding Paganini violin stuff. But then something even more surprising hits us, with guest female vocals from somebody named Neuta. Only other project I can find they're participating in is the symphonic power metal band Hallucination Aria. But she's really fucking good on this, particularly when she starts overdubbing multiple vocal layers. She does a really good job of mimicking that same chaotic melodic style of the guitar. And then this groove part hits.
This is a certified hood classic.
I mean, this has got to be one of my favorite metal songs recorded in recent memory. Been listening to it all the time at the gym, driving around, doing errands, doing work, whatever. It works for everything. And when the guitars and drums go away, you just got vocals and synths, you can really hear what I'm talking about when I say this lady does a really good job mimicking the frenzied nature of Zemeth's guitar's harmonies with just her voice. And here's a cool little orchestral sort of breakdown section, always appreciated, very well done as usual. Get back to that Malice Miser thing, again, we collapse into solely the music box. And if you remember how Bel Air went, you know where this is gonna go. About to get heavy, folks.
I'm gonna kick it up a little bit.
And when the vocals come back in, she's even kind of changed up her vocal performance a little bit. Less cutesy, a little more power metal heroic sounding, befitting for the heroic conclusion to an epic power metal, melodic death metal, whatever the fuck kind of nostalgic metal song. I think the Loneliness EP might be my favorite thing ever put out by Bloody Cumshøt or Zemeth. Also really like the album cover. Lady on there kind of looks like she could be one of the vampire witch sisters from Castlevania Portrait of Ruin, which is a very interesting game in itself, actually. It's a direct sequel to the sole Castlevania game on the Sega Genesis, or the Mega Drive if you're in Japan, Europe, or whatever. Castlevania Bloodlines. What makes this little kind of mini Castlevania series interesting is that you're not playing as one of the Belmonts. Instead, you're playing as a member of the Morris clan, as in Quincy Morris, who was a character in the original Dracula novel, thus tying together the canon of Castlevania with the canon of the original Bram Stoker novel.
룸서비스를 영어로 시켜먹기였는데
Sorry, I found myself going into a little bit of a nostalgic memory hole there. I blame my boy Junya Higuchi for being a little bit too good at what he does, whether it be the nostalgic melodic death metal of Zemeth or the extreme melodic death metal of Bloody Cumshøt. Everything these guys done, it was fucking amazing. Go out and buy all of it. Happy New Year or whatever. Thanks for watching, listening, whatever you did. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
I got trying to fucking pull my drink up and now I'm spilling